So, you started playing Destiny and you don't know what class you're gonna fucking pick. Well, I'm gonna give you a basic rundown of each of these classes so you have a better understanding of how you want to play with each class and what you'll mainly be doing. I will start off with this very flexy boy, the Titan. For his Void subclass, he has the Sentinel. Now, for first I have the jump abilities. High lift, don't recommend that. It's pretty much just you go high. Strafe lift if you want to go for like long jumps and have a little more control. Or catapult lift, which pretty much is just I'm gonna read it word for word here. Jump while airborne to activate lift and launch into the air with a strong initial burst of momentum. Meaning, it does not last long, but it is fast and quick, and you can adjust like what direction you're going pretty well. Next up is the grenades. You have the magnetic grenade, void wall, and suppressor. The magnetic is let's say you're a Call of Duty player in the Semtext. It's a sticky grenade that when attached will explode twice. The first will do a mediocre amount of damage, and then the second will do the same amount of damage. But it will not one-shot them unless you have a perk I'll go on to later on. Next up is the Void Wall Grenade, which, when you throw it on the ground, it'll split into a line of purple fire. Next up, you have the Suppressor Grenade, which in PvE, it, like, debuffs them and gives them, like a slowdown effect. And in PvP, it stops all enemies from using their abilities, supers included. Next up, you have your class abilities, Towering Barricade and Rally Barricade. Towering Barricade is for full protection if you are in a highlight activity that you cannot handle, and is meant for all-around protection for survival. Now, Rally Barricade, it is smaller, and if you're not crouched, you can still get shot in the face in PvP, but when you are shooting with it, it'll cause you to reload your weapons faster, which is really useful since they got rid of most of auto reloading, except for Whisper of the Worm, because that's literally what the gun does. Next up, you have the Bubble Code of the Protector, which when you melee an enemy and your melee ability is charged, you will get a buffed shield for you and your teammates. And then, while you kill enemies with your melee, you get melee energy while this overshield is active. Secondly is Rallying Force. Melee kills restore health for you and nearby allies. And then Turn the Tide. Your overshield from defensive strike lasts longer and increases melee damage and reload speed. Next up is your super, Ward of Dawn. It is essentially a big bubble that protects your teammates. It's kind of like a circular version of Rally Barricade, but when you are inside it, you gain an overshield, and when you walk out, or while you're in it, you gain a buff for 15 seconds called Weapons of Light, which is a 35% damage increase, which is pretty good in any activity. And then, if you are I'm going to that later. For your middle tree, you have Banner Shield. It is basically a smaller shield that when you hold right click, it has a larger AoE for protection, kind of like an oval, and allies can shoot through it, and it provides Weapons of Light the same way Ward of Dawn does. And then secondly, when you hit enemies with your melee abilities, it causes a Void Explosion, which is pretty good for ad clearing. And then Controlled Demolition is the second part of that really brings in the whole crowd control thing with this tree. Hit a target with a Void ability to attach a Void Detonator. Further hits cause the detonator to explode, dealing damage to surrounding targets. Which pretty much means this and this go perfectly together, and you will explode entire waves of ads. And then resupply, you and nearby allies regain health, as well as grenade and melee energy when your void detonators explode. Pretty much meaning the more you ad clear, the more you'll be able to ad clear. And then also, another thing I forgot to mention for the Ward of Dawn, you have to hold F to actually put down the ward And then for all three of these, you can throw a shield, Captain America style, which is pretty good, and it bounces from enemy to enemy with tracking. Not like super strong, but it has goes in the general direction of the enemy after it makes contact with something. Next up is the code of the aggressor. After sprinting for a short time, you will develop a you'll see like air moving on your screen. When you see that after running for a long enough amount of time, you'll be able to bash someone with your shield, activating your melee key, which is only available when you have the charge fully up. It disorients them and suppresses them, which, as I went over earlier, is the same as your suppressor grenade. Secondly, grenade kills recharge your grenade energy, which is... I can't tell you, like, with Ashes to Assets, which is a perk that grenade kills give you super energy, you will get your supers so fast. And grenades, it's just... It's so fun to see how broken you can get your character to be with some things. Then in the trenches, kills while surrounded by enemies reduce the cooldown of your super, meaning if you jump headfirst into the fray and come out alive, you'll be getting a lot more super energy. And then the main thing while activating the super is you gain an additional shield throw. Now with the top two, you get 1, but they recharge slowly over time. And while they're recharging, you can only like use your normal bash or protection. Now, both of these trees can use a protection, but it's just for yourself and not for your teammates. But this one has 2 of them. So pretty much you can throw one, then throw another, and then just go hand with your shield on other enemies. The main exotic I recommend for Ward of Dawn is Helm Saint 14. Any enemies that enter it will be blind, and it allows you to have an overshield outside of your bubble. But you have to go in it and walk out of it, kind of like a little extra safety. Next up, Doomfang Pauldrons. Void melee kills, give super energy, and improve Sentinel Shield. Basically, melee kills, this is mainly useful for bottom tree, where if you melee kill, lots of super energy, as I just said. And then, when you throw your shields, you get some back, and getting melee kills with them also give you your shield back. And then also for middle tree, I recommend Ursa Furiosa, which basically, what it does is the more damage you block, the more you'll get your next super back, allowing you to constantly have super and protection for your teammates, which all around is very strong. And then, next up for our Titan subclass, we have Sunbreaker, which is the more aggressive PvP subclass. Actually, I'd say it's in between Sentinel and Striker. I'll get into Striker later. So, first you have the same jumps, which I mentioned earlier. Grenades, you have an Incendiary Grenade, which is like a normal frag grenade where it bounces on the ground. But after it explodes, it does a short burst of damage and sets them on fire, so you can kind of use those damage numbers to get a general direction of where they are. Thermite grenades, they're like the void wall grenades I went over earlier, but instead of going horizontally like a wall, they go straight in a line. So they're better for things that are in a line instead of together like a squad in an entire line. Then lastly, you have diffusion grenades, which is like the magnetic grenade. It only explodes once, but it does the same damage as those two exploding together. You have the barricades, as I went over earlier. I'll start off with top tree. While sprinting, use this ability to swing a blazing hammer that weakens enemies. Basically, the shield bash I went over earlier, it's like that, but you're hitting them with the hammer instead, and it allows your entire team to do increased damage towards them, which is insanely strong. And then, solar ability kills grant you and nearby allies bonus movement and reload speed. Basically, like, let's say you're killing a lot of ads and you're together with your teammates, and you use your thermite grenade, which is the one I strongly recommend, and you get a butt ton of kills with them. You will gain tempered metal, allowing you to reload faster and move faster, which is really fun to use and mess around with. And then, enemies killed by the Hammer of Soul explode. And then the Hammer of Soul is when you activate your super and the things that you throw at them, which is pretty neat for multi-kills. And then, hammers also shatter into little balls that go to explode again, which again is also really good for multi-kills. You don't need to throw the hammer individually. at different people. Next up, you have the Burning Maul. You will summon a giant hammer and pretty much spin around like a Beyblade to deal damage in a like circular AoE. Or when you right click, which is your R2 or sorry, L2 and M2, and that you will slam the ground, and it will launch a tracking like explosive little drone that'll track enemies. And now, how I mentioned earlier, with this you'd run up to your enemies and hit them with it. With this, it may not weaken them and give your team a damage buff, but you can hit them from farther away, and it does explode if you do not pick it up in time. And then after it hits off something, remember, if you don't pick it up in time, it explodes. But you can also run to pick it up, and then you will not need to wait for another charge. And then after hitting an enemy with your throwing hammer, picking up the hammer triggers your health regeneration. Pretty much meaning, hit an enemy, you run to grab it, you're in like a center of ads, like a lot of hive or thrall. Picking it up will trigger health regeneration, so you have enough time to get out of the fight. And then lastly, for this sub-branch, kills with your solar abilities increase those abilities damage dex up to 3 times. Meaning, oh, I got like a grenade triple kill. Well, now your hammer will do more damage. Same with your super. Lastly, we have the Code of the Siegebreaker, which is pretty much this, but instead of exploding on like the little embers I talked about earlier, the explosive molten embers, after it explodes, it'll turn into like a little fire hurricane and allows yourself to go into it, making your super last longer. And then when you hit an enemy with a solar charged melee, it'll release a fire explosion, setting nearby enemies on fire. Kind of a good form of crowd control. Sun Warrior. Passing through sunspots causes your solar abilities to recharge faster and your super to last longer. It also increases the damage you do. Meaning, let's say you're fighting a boss, you pop your super and then you see a one of the little fire hurricanes on the ground. You walk in it, your super will last longer, meaning you can throw more hammers, and the damage of your hammers will also last longer. And lastly, we have Endless Siege. Hammers create a sunspot on impact. While standing in sunspots, you throw hammers faster. Meaning that the amount of hammers you can throw is increased. Meaning you can just throw a lot of hammers, and those sunspots, they do damage as well. So it's a lot of damage over time, especially when it stacks multiple times. Basic exotics I recommend for this subclass consist of Worm God's Caress for the middle tree when you're throwing hammers, because melee kills increase melee damage. If you stack it up enough, the hammers hit for an insane amount of damage. I'd love to demonstrate this for you, but let's say you get 2 melee kills in PvP, which is the Crucible PvP mode. Just stuttering now, lol. And then, when you throw your next hammer, it will one-shot them. Then, it's nutty for PvP. Next up is Phoenix Cradle with the bottom tree sunspots. Your teammates can also go in those sunspots and reap the same benefits that you do. And then Peregrine Greaves, when you hit them with any of your like melee attacks while in the air, like the charged ones, like the ones that you need the wind in front of your face for, this increases the damage by a lot, which is just good for all 3 trees. Last one is Hollow Fire Heart. If you like to hold on to your super for when it's necessary, this, when you have it charged, it'll recharge all of your other abilities much, much faster. Lastly, for the Titan, we have the Striker class. So starting with top tree, after sprinting for a short time, use this melee ability to slam shoulder first into your target and release an arc explosion on impact. It's pretty much the same as the last 2, but this one is in between in terms of how fast it moves you. And all 3 of these, like the one with the wind in front of your face, which is what I'm going to call it for people that don't understand, they all one-shot in Crucible. And they have a pretty good lunge range. And then this, damaging enemies with Seismic Strike recharges your grenade, which, considering it's a one-hit ability in PvP, gets your grenades a lot faster. Magnitude, gain an additional grenade charge, increases the duration of grenade effects like Pulse Grenade, Flashbang, and Lightning. And then Terminal Velocity, Fists of Havoc, Ground Slam, attack leaves a damage-dealing field in its wake. And you do more damage the longer you're in the air. So basically, let's say you're Hulk, and you jump off a building to slam the ground. The longer you're in, the more momentum you will gain, and you will hit harder. And sorry, I apologize for this. I forgot to go over the grenades for this subclass. The Flashbang Grenade disorients enemies as a Flashbang Grenade normally would. Pulse Grenades, when you throw them, they will attach to whatever they made impact with. Like, they wouldn't attach, but they'll stay where it made impact. And it'll pulse a couple times to deal decent amounts of damage. And they're what I recommend for most people. Lastly, I have Lightning Grenades, which are kind of like tripwires. So like you can throw them behind walls for people that are behind walls that you can't shoot. And then they'll go in a cone-shaped AoE. For the middle tree, you have Thunder Crash, where you turn into a ballistic missile. And it's actually pretty fun to mess around with, and can have some pretty nutty combinations. Pretty much, it's just like you're just Supermaning your way through the sky to create a massive AoE damage that will one-shot. Next up, you have Ballistic Slam, which normally when you see the wind in front of your face, you'll be in the air for this one, and you will dive towards the ground, punching everything. Like, punching the ground and leaving mass AoE in its wake. Lastly, gain super energy from hitting enemies with Ballistic Slam, which means the more damage you deal with it, and the more enemies are around, the faster you'll get your super back, and the faster you'll be able to kill things in general. And now, lastly, Inertia Override, which is kind of a skill you have to refine to pull off often, and makes a big difference in terms of time to kill in Crucible. Picking up ammo during a slide reloads your equipped weapon and increase weapon damage for a short time. Which basically, like, a thing of ammo dropped, you slide over it, it'll increase that weapon's damage for a bit. Lastly is Reversal. This is the almost the same thing as the top tree, where you will enter a Hulk mode and start slamming the ground and slamming people in general with your shoulders or knees. Frontal Assault. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to reload your weapon and increase both your weapon stability and weapon damage, which basically is when you hit someone with your melee, it'll reload your weapon, increase the stability, meaning you'll have less recoil and it'll be easier to aim, and it'll increase your overall DPS output. Second is Reversal. Melee kills immediately trigger health regeneration, so you can be very up in people's faces, and I'll talk about this later, and it goes very well with the super. And you'll get health back on each kill. Critically wounding an enemy or breaking their shields increases your melee range and damage, which is the perk for Knockout. I need to stop saying basically. Let's say you break someone's shield. You will be able to melee from a farther distance, and your melees will hit harder. Lastly is Trample. Destroying enemies with Fist of Havoc extends its duration. So, it goes very well with Reversal because they count as melee kills when you use the normal shoot button, which is like the bashing people with their shoulder, because it extends its duration, and you get health back immediately, and it's a one-shot. I strongly recommend this for anyone that's new to PvP. And then for exotics, I recommend, for top tree, you would like to run Insurmountable Skull Fort, which is pretty much killing something with your melee charge gives your melee back, allowing almost infinite. What else? Eternal Warrior, casting Fist of Havoc grants overshields if you're not too comfortable with it. And then lastly, Dune Marchers. The main thing you want from this is chaining melee damage, especially from an ability that one-shots and having it going to all the enemies. It is extremely strong. Now, overall exotics I recommend for Titan that I always keep on me, aside from Helmut Saint 14 and the ones I list for a specific class, One-Eyed Mask. Pretty much giving you X-Ray of someone who hits you, and then after you kill someone who hits you, or kills you, and then you come back and kill them, it'll give you an overshield. Secondly is Syntheseps. The more people that are around you, the harder you punch them. Then you have Heart of Inmost Light, which, let's say you put up your barricade, that'll make your melee or grenade stronger. Secondly is Lion Rampant, which makes all of your jumps last extremely long, and I recommend that for any kind of PvP mode. And I think that will do it for the episode around Titans. Actually, no, I'm going to do this on all 3 classes. Next up, we will have the Warlocks, which are the book smart but also extremely strong class. We'll start with Voidwalker, which is harnessing the power of space to destroy everything around you, which is really cool. You have your Healing Rift, which is like plopping down a little circle that'll heal you over time, and teammates that go inside of it, but not your enemies. So keep that in mind. Don't be nervous about popping that on places that you need to have control over. Empowering Rift, it does the circular thing the same, but instead of healing you, it gives you more damage. And then for your grenade abilities, you have Vortex Grenade. It's like the Pulse Grenade, but instead of doing damage in pulses, as the name implies, this does damage over time. The Axion Bolt is like you throw the grenade. Once it makes contact with something, it'll then track the nearest target as long as it's within range. And then Scatter Grenade, which is the one I like to use the most. It splits into multiple grenades that, like, it's like when you throw a balloon, how it splits into multiple pieces of water and has like an AoE, and it hits multiple people at the same time, like a very big water balloon. Then the 3 kinds of jumps you have are Strafe Glide, which if you're trying to jump around corners and stuff like that is what I'd recommend. It allows you to be very mobile in the air. Blink, which is just teleporting and you have a cooldown for it. You have 2 blinks when you spawn, and it takes around 1 to 2 seconds to recharge your next blink. Lastly, you have Burst Glide, which allows you to have a very strong momentum, and is what I recommend for anyone who is new to the game or just wants to go fast. Firstly, we have Attunement of Chaos. Entropic Pull. Strike an enemy with this melee to drain your enemy's life force and use it to recharge your grenade. So, when your melee is charged, hit an enemy with it, and then it will recharge your grenade, allowing you to hit harder with your grenade on what you choose. And then Chaos Accelerant. You will not throw your grenade immediately when you hold it, but now you will charge it, and then it will hit a certain point where it is super strong and it kills things super fast. Next you have Bloom. Void ability causes enemies to explode. So like, let's say you've got someone in a Vortex Grenade, you kill someone, and then someone comes out with just a sliver of HP. Bloom will cause that person that you killed to explode, and then their teammate who you didn't kill to also explode. And lastly, what defines this tree's super is Cataclysm. Nova Bomb travels slowly and seeks enemies' detonations shatter into smaller secret projectiles. Fire your weapon at the Nova Bomb to detonate it early. So basically, it's slow, but it explodes, kills everything, and then separates into smaller versions of that, and then those seek and kill things, which is really insane for PvP if you don't have the best aim in the world. But just be careful because it can also be shot by enemies, and they can save their own skin. Next up, we have Attunement of Fission, which starts out with Nova Warp. You can teleport from place to place with your aim down sights button, and when you right click, you will create a AoE like explosion and almost one shot everything in that radius. Next up is Atomic Breach. This melee ability hits at an extended range and creates a void explosion, which that's simple. I don't feel like I need to explain that. And Handheld Supernova, boy does this get people mad in the Crucible. When you hold to convert it into a short range void blast, it is a one shot. And it is very easy to be getting kills with, and it has insane range. Like, it's 2 times longer than a melee and still one shots. And then lastly is Dark Matter. Void ability kills grant health and melee, grenade, and class ability energy. Basically meaning, hey, get a void ability kill, get all your other stuff back. You get that back. Don't need to worry about it. Don't need to worry about charge times as much. And lastly is Attunement of Hunger, which is what I enjoy the most to run, which starts with Devour. Kills with the melee ability regenerate your health. For a short time afterwards, which is around 9 seconds, kills will reset Devour for another 9 seconds and give you immediate health back. Second is Feed the Void. You can, if you don't have your melee charged, and you do have your melee charged, but you can't get anything's face to kill it, or you're desperate and just need more health, you can eat your grenade and get all your health back and still proc Devour the same way instead of 9 seconds. Thirdly is Insatiable. While the Devour effect is active, killing enemies extends its duration and recharges your grenade. Which means, hey, you have Devour active, you have 9 seconds. Kill things, another 9 seconds, get your grenade energy back. Kill things, another 9 seconds, get your grenade energy back. And it's just really fun to mess around with. Lastly is Vortex, which is what separates this a lot from Attunement of Chaos. This, instead of splitting into smaller balls that track, will copy your Vortex grenade but have an enhanced circular AoE field. And then exotics I recommend for this class consist of Nezarec Sin, which you can read the perk. I don't feel like I need to explain it because you can read it right there. Nova Bomb kills grant super energy, which isn't as forgiving, but it used to be a lot stronger and they had to nerf it, but still a great pick. And if you're running Blink, this gets you a lot farther with it. You can ready your weapons faster after getting out of it, and it recharges faster. And lastly, for this subclass, I will recommend Controverse Holds, improved charging for void grenades. I don't know, I decided to right click on it, but has some little computer parts on it and it looks cool. Really good if you're running Middle Tree and handheld Supernova. Next we have Dawnblade. Then the one part of Voidwalker that I couldn't talk about for the jumps is they have Blink instead of Balanced Glide, which is a mix of Strafe Glide and Burst, so you can kind of control it, but you also have good speed. And then Fireball is the same as Axion, and then Fusion Grenade I explained to you earlier on the Solar Titan. We will start with Attunement of the Sky. Strike an enemy with this melee to burn your target. Temporarily increases your movement and reload speed, and boosts your airborne weapon accuracy. Because normally while you are playing Destiny 2 and you are in the air, you will notice that when you try to shoot, your weapons aren't always 100% accurate. Which either you can apply an Icarus Grip, or you can run Swift Strike. Which I prefer to run Icarus Grip because that's available on all classes. The next is Winged Sun. Engage your enemies mid-flight, fire weapons, and throw grenades while gliding. So normally while you activate your jump ability, ADSing disables it. This allows you to keep going well in the air and pairs really well with either Swift Strike or Icarus Grip. Then Heat Rises. Airborne kills recharge your grenade and melee energy. Casting Daybreak instantly refills all your ability energy. Meaning, hey, you got a kill in the air? Here's your grenade and melee back. So that we can get more airborne accuracy. Then lastly is Icarus Dash. Activate while mid-air to dodge, so you can do like a quick juke to get out of someone's line of sight if you feel in danger. Next up is Well of Radiance, which is more of the support class. To say, your main super is Well of Radiance. You will plop a sword into the ground for 30 seconds, allowing immense healing and damage output. Guiding Flame. Strike a enemy with this melee ability to inflict burn damage and empower yourself and nearby allies. Basically, you have your melee charged, you hit an enemy, you and your buddies get increased damage for a couple seconds. Pretty neat. Especially when you don't have your super or your rift. Divine Protection, you can convert your grenades, regardless of which one it is, as long as you are running this tree. And you can throw them to assist your teammates, or you can hold on to them while you are in the air to increase your jump's duration. Lastly is Benevolent Dawn. Healing or empowering allies regenerates your grenade, melee, and rift energy. Pretty much meaning, hey, y'all are in a healing rift? I'll give you your healing rift back. Y'all are in an empowering rift? I'll give you your empowering rift back. Next up, we have the Attunement of Flame, which is what I normally like to play as when I use my Warlock. We have Igniting Touch. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to burn them and cause them to explode. It's quite simple. Fated for the Flame. Daybreak projectiles seek targets as they travel and upon impact launch a streak of deadly flames. Meaning, you don't need to worry 100% about accuracy. It'll track a little bit. And then after it hits them, it'll do like what the Thermite Grenade does for Titans. Which is good for multi-kills because you don't need to constantly be doing it in the same line. Next is Everlasting Fire. Killing an enemy with Daybreak extends the duration, which is pretty nutty. And then lastly we have Phoenix Dive, which aside from Icarus Dash, well, it just pops you straight down to the ground. And it also heals you. But when Daybreak is active, you shove your sword into the ground and have like an AoE like I showed you with the Middle Tree for Striker Titan. And lastly is Stormcaller for all of you Star Wars fans out there. This starts out with the basic Healing Rift and Powering Rift. Arc Bolt Grenade, which is the same as Axion Bolt, but is a little faster and doesn't track over time, and it's instant. Pulse Grenade, showed you that one already. Storm Grenade, when you throw this at someone, it'll create a mini storm that shoots down little lightning strikes. For your top tree, this electrocuting melee ability hits at extended range and chains lightning from the struck target to nearby enemies. Meaning, your melee is charged, you hit someone with it, you deal damage, spreads to everyone else. Great for crowd control. And then where this subclass really gets fun is Arc Web. Enemies damaged by your grenades chain deadly lightning to nearby enemies. Each grenade or melee chain returns grenade energy. Meaning it goes very well with this, and you can constantly have your grenade and melees up. And it's just so good for clearing large amounts of enemies in any kind of game mode, really. Nextly is Transcendence. When cast with full grenade and melee energy, Storm Trance lasts longer and fully restores health. So, you pop your super, you're low on health. Oh, you happen to have your grenade and melee energy. Well, now you can have a longer lasting super, and you get full health. Next is Ionic Blink. It's like Blink for the Void Walker, except it takes a little bit of your super energy, and there is no cooldown. Next up is the Attunement of Control. Chaos Reach is essentially a Kamehameha, or if you're not a weeb and lonely, it is a beam of energy that will annihilate everything in its path, and you can deactivate it early if it so fits your playstyle. But I will warn you, while it does return some energy, it does not return in as much as it shows, like as little as you've used. Then Ball of Lightning. You will fire an arc projectile that travels forward and releases a perpendicular bolt of lightning. Unlocked by defeating... I don't know why I went into that. Basically, your melee is charged, you do a melee, it sends out a little ball, and then when it goes to something, it'll shoot a little bolt of lightning like the Storm Grenade does. Lastly, or second to last, is Ionic Trace. Defeating enemies has a chance to create Ionic Traces. Collecting these create energy to all your abilities. So let's say you cleared a bunch of ads. There's a bunch of these coming towards you. You get your grenade back, you get your melee back, especially with the Ball of Lightning that you can throw into another wave of enemies, and you'll get more Ionic Traces. Pulse Wave. Being critically wounded triggers an energy wave that boosts yours and ally speed. Pretty good for clutch scenarios when your team needs to run away from disengage from a fight that you don't think you will win. Lastly is Attunement of the Elements. Rising Storm. This electrocuting melee ability hits at extended range and recharges your super, grenade, and melee energy. Quite simple. It has extended range, meaning it can hit farther than most melees. It gives you some of your super energy back and your grenade and melee energy, but don't think it's going to give you your class abilities back, because it won't. On casting Storm Trance, fire a bolt of lightning into the ground, creating a devastating shockwave under you, which is landfall. So let's say you're in the air, hovering over a control point. You pop your super, it shoots a bolt of lightning down and kills or deals lots of damage. Then you won't need to use as much super energy on those enemies. Oh, sorry. Exotics I recommend for Dawnblade mainly consist of... where is you at? Phoenix Protocol, getting kills with it, or getting the people that are in it getting kills, give you your next one back. And Lunafaction Boots give you your super back. Or sorry, give you enhanced reload. And then for Stormcaller, Storm Dancer's Brace. Each enemy you defeat with Storm Trance increases the damage you deal with it, which is good for top and bottom tree. And then Geomag Stabilizer, Extended Chaos Reach. Sprinting can add super energy. So let's say you have like 3/4 of your super. Geomag allows you to sprint, and you will get it back extremely fast. And then lastly, for you Stormcallers, you Special Unicorns, Crown of Tempest, it's like Storm Dancer's Brace, but instead of increasing damage, it increases duration. Lastly, we will move on to Hunters, which I feel most people would like, just because they seem openly accessible, and for most people that come from other FPS games, or the Titan, but the Warlock's usually the oddball out. We will start off with Arc Strider. Combination Blow. Kill an enemy with this melee ability to trigger health regeneration and increase your melee damage. Temporarily stacks up to 3 times. So, you kill an enemy, you get combination blow times 1. You use your dodges, which I'll go over later, right after this tree. Actually, I'll explain it now because it mostly goes with this one. Marksman dodge. Dodging to perform an evasive maneuver with a steady hand. Dodging automatically reloads your weapon, or you can run Gambler's Dodge, which is better for Way of the Warrior, which is the top tree. Dodging near an enemy will fully give you your melee ability back. Now, another thing with this tree that I'll get into later, because I believe it shows somewhere else. So pretty much, get a melee kill. That's combination blow times 1. You do your Gambler's Dodge, and then you get another melee kill, and then you get combination blow times 2. And there's Deadly Reach. Dodging increases your melee range, allowing you to lunge further to strike enemies. And then melee kills redodge your dodge ability. I mean, combination blow kill, dodge, combination blow kill, dodge, combination blow kill, and just keep getting melee kills to get health regeneration and deal more melee damage. Nextly is Lethal Current. After dodging, each arc staff hit creates a damage lightning aftershock, which is kind of like the top tree of the Titan that I showed you earlier, where it has a little pulsing AoE. They have skip grenades, which when they hit the ground, they split into multiple little grenades, kind of like the scatter grenade I showed you earlier, but these have aggressive tracking. The flux grenade is pretty much a sticky grenade that is pretty good ease of use. And then is the arc bolt grenade, as I showed you earlier. Their jumps consist of high jump. It's the normal double jump you'd expect in a video game, where it's like jump once, jump again, like normal. There's strafe jump, which instead of getting you higher, well, it is still a second jump. Instead of focusing on height, it prefers control, so you can go around corners, be quite agile. And then triple jump is what most people run, so you can jump, and then jump again to be able to control yourself, and then also adjust yourself with the third jump, or if you just want to get high heights. Nextly is Whirlwind Guard. This is the main difference between all these 3 trees. With this one, you will use your block keybind, which I have set to V. I believe that's what it is by default. You will spin your arc staff and deflect damage back at them. Next is Tempest Strike. After sliding, you can activate your melee ability as long as it is charged, and it will unleash a line of arc damage that is pretty useful for control. Zone control. Next is Lightning Wave. Melee hits greatly increase weapon reload speed. So basically it's like, let's say you're using a weapon that has a very slow reload. Get a melee kill, reload it like lightning. Fast as hell. Next is Ebb and Flow. Hit a target with an arc ability to electrify them. Meleeing electrified enemies disorients them and grants grenade, melee, and dodge energy. It's your basic combo, pretty much. So meleeing electrified enemies, which you get after using an arc ability on them, gives back all of your ability charges. Next up is Way of the Wind. Disorienting Blow. Strike an enemy with this melee ability to disorient the target and nearby enemies, meaning it'll shake their screen and give them a little bit of like a flashbang effect. Then Focus Breathing. Sprinting recharges your dodge ability, and then increased maximum sprint speed, meaning you can sprint faster, and if you need to get your dodge back for whatever reason, sprinting will help you get it back faster. Next up is Combat Meditation. While critically wounded, melee and grenade recharge drastically faster. So you're in a gunfight, you get extremely low, you have your grenades, then you just unleash hell after being hurt. Exotics I recommend for this consist of Assassin's Cowl, defeating a guardian with a melee attack, or a combatant with a finisher grants invisibility and restores a portion of health and shields. So it allows invisibility and health off finishers, which is a recent thing that you can do in Destiny. Next is Raid and Flux. Arc Staff hits buff damage and duration, meaning the more you're hitting them, the more damage you'll do, and the longer it'll last overall. And there's Liar's Handshake. Let's say something punches you. You will punch them and hit harder. Meaning, normally in PvP, it's a 2 melee hit, but if they melee you first, it's a 1 melee. Next up, we have Night Stalker. They have the basic dodges. Vortex Grenade I went over. Spike Grenade is like the Lightning Grenade I went over, except it's consistent instead of burst damage. Then I already went over Void Grenade and all these 3 jumps. We're going to start off with Snare Bomb. Throw a smoke bomb from a distance with this melee ability. The smoke bomb sticks to surfaces and detonates when enemies are near, slowing and disorientating them. Meaning, let's say you're in a choke point where you know enemies are going to come through. Set that up. It'll think on their radar that there's an enemy nearby, so they'll get cautious. But when they get too close, it'll slow them and disorient them, allowing you to come out of cover and kill the entire team. Next is Keen Scout. Sprint and sneak faster and gain enhanced tracker. Tethered enemies are marked for easy tracking. So tether is your main super for the top and bottom tree. So if they are tethered, you can get marked, pretty much meaning they have X-ray. Next up is Deadfall. The Void Anchors fired from Shadow Shot become traps and wait for prey. Void Anchors have increased range and last longer. So this is the main difference between the top tree and bottom tree. Well, this one it's like a trap. It's all about setting stuff up for your enemies to come towards you. Lastly, dodging makes you vanish from sight for a short time. Now, it's more of a camouflage than complete invisibility. And then it takes you away from enemies' radar in PvP. Next up, we have Wave the Wraith, which is the main PvP build that people used to use, but I've been seeing a resurgence in the other 2 recently. Summon a pair of deadly void blades and stalk the battlefield in a veil of shadows, meaning you are mostly camouflaged, but it's a purple tinted camouflage. Your smoke slows enemies and damages them over time, which is really good for a wombo combo that I will be going by later. Next is No Distractions. While crouched, precision kills grant invisibility and True Sight, increased melee range. The main focus on this is True Sight. Invisibility in the last 9 seconds, which is the camouflage I went over earlier, and True Sight is basically wall hacks for 3 seconds. Lastly is Shattering Strike. After performing a flawless execution, your melee attacks weaken enemies. Flawless execution is when you right-click, you use your ADS key, and it'll do like a little flip. Flawless execution is this. I don't know why I was talking about that. My apologies, you know what I was talking about. Next up is Wave the Pathfinder. Throw a smoke bomb from a distance, making you and nearby allies invisible and providing the Heart of the Pack buff. Heart of the Pack grants weapon haste and increases mobility, recovery, and resilience for you and your nearby allies. Pretty much, if you want to make yourself invisible and you can't use your dodge for it, you can use your melee, and it also helps your teammates, which increases the following stats: mobility for speed, recovery for how fast you can heal after taking damage, and resilience, the amount of damage you can take before you die. Then weapon haste is how quickly you can pull out a weapon. Next up, we have Lockdown. Grenade effects last twice as long, allowing for strong territorial control and increased damage potential. Meaning, like, your Void Wall grenade, it'll last twice as long, so that means it has twice the amount of time to deal damage and have control over an area. Next is Combat Provision. Damaging enemies with grenades grants melee ability energy. Making allies invisible grants grenade energy. Pretty simple, don't feel the need to explain it. And then this is the main difference I was going to talk about earlier. Mobius Quiver. Fire Shadow Shot multiple times in rapid succession. Shadow Shots deal massive damage against tethered enemies. Defeating tethered enemies grants Orbs of Light and grants nearby allies the Heart of the Pack buff, which I went over earlier. Now, the combo I was going to talk about earlier doesn't allow this one as much because it doesn't deal as much damage with the smoke and is more of a support smoke. But with these two, you would like to throw your smoke grenade and then your Void Wall grenade, and it will annihilate them. For that subclass, I mainly recommend the Gwizinvest. And then also the Dragon Shadow if you want to run the invisibility smoke, because then you can have that, and you can also reload your weapons. Lastly, we have the Gunslinger. I went over the... Oh, wait, no, I didn't go over the Incendiary Grenade. Sorry. Incendiary Grenade. You will throw a normal grenade that'll, like, bounce off, when it goes on impact with something, and when it explodes, aside from the explosion damage, it also deals tick damage, allowing you to get a general sense of their direction for a couple of seconds after the explosion. Next up is Swarm Grenade. It's like the the scatter grenade I went over earlier, but instead of exploding immediately after hitting something, this will have a swarm of tiny like tiny explosive balls that'll wait for something to enter its AoE, and then they'll seek enemies. Lastly is the trip mine grenade. It's like the lightning grenade, but this one, it waits for someone, and then it'll explode. We are going to start with explosive knife for the Way of the Outlaw. Throw a knife from a distance that explodes shortly after the impact of this melee ability. So, your main melee ability, when it is charged, you will throw a knife, which will explode. Chains of Will. Precision kills increased weapon reload speed for you and nearby allies. Which means, hey, you hit them in the head a couple times. Your entire team, and including you, gets to reload faster. Next up is Deadshot. Significantly improve your ability to hit with Golden Gun, meaning it increases your accuracy so that way you can shoot in the air because your accuracy is a little wonky while there. Next up we have Six Shooter, which is, again, the key difference between Way of the Outlaw and Way of the Sharpshooter. It allows you to shoot 6 bullets, but each time you kill something with it, it'll refund your bullet. Next we have Way of 1,000 Cuts, aka the Very Sharp Boy. You have Blade Barrage. You jump into the air and throw around a bunch of explosive solar knives. And it does it in 2 bursts, so you can look in one direction, throw them, then flick somewhere else, and throw a bunch of grenades somewhere else, and they will explode, and are very good for crowd control. Next up is Knife Trick. Throw a fan of flaming knives that burn targets on hit. So it's like this, except instead of exploding, it does burning over time, and you throw 3 of them. Next up is Playing with Fire. Destroying burning enemies recharges knife tricks more quickly, so burn someone, kill them, get it back faster. Burn someone, kill them, get it back faster. And you'll pretty much always have your melee ability, as long as you're always using it fast enough. Lastly is the Burning Edge. While enemies burn, your dodge ability recharges faster, so you can, if you somehow mess up the Playing with Fire, you can run Gambler's Dodge and get your melee back again. Then lastly is Way of the Sharpshooter. First up is Knife Juggler. Throw a knife from a distance. Precision knife kills with this melee ability immediately recharge it. So, let's say you get someone low with your gun, you throw the knife, you kill them and it hits their face, you will get it back immediately instead of having to run to pick it up like you would with the Sunbreaker. Practice makes perfect. Enter a trance with each precision hit, reducing the cooldown of your super, and then Knife Juggler kills grants super energy. So this gives super energy, and this gives your super faster. Crowd Pleaser. Enables precision damage with Golden Gun. Precision hits with Golden Gun generate orbs of light. So, this tree, even if you hit him in the face, it does the same amount of damage as hitting them in the body. But this, hitting them in the head, deals more damage like a normal gun shooting someone in the face. And then this also generates orbs to get other people's super back faster, as well as your own. And lastly is Line 'em Up. Precision hits with Golden Gun increase its damage and extends its duration. So if you shoot all 3, your 3rd shot will hit harder than the previous 2. And then it'll also extend the duration, allowing you to line up your next shots to make sure you hit them. The main exotics I recommend for this tree consist of Celestial Nighthawk for the bottom tree because it multiplies your damage of a shot by 6, but converts all 3 shots into 1 bullet. So make sure you're accurate. And then ability damage grants enhanced trip mines. Pretty much meaning get a kill with your knife, better trip mine. Next up is Shards of Galanor. When you are using Blade Barrage, the more damage or kills you get, regenerate it. And then I believe that is it. And then as an overall exotic for hunters, I recommend the Stompies. They increase your sprint, slide, and jumping. If this in any way helped you pick your 3 classes, please let me know in the comments below. I would very much appreciate a rating so I can know if I'm doing good or bad on this video, because this is my first attempt at something like this, and I was told that some of my friends that are getting into Destiny wanted to know how to pick their classes. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day.